crafty friends. Welcome to Expressions in Journaling. My name is Heather. Did you know that the global craft industry is over $35 million annually? I feel like I've contributed to that amount. I've dabbled in photography, wreath making, card making, stamping, mixed media, photography. I invested in a sign making business. And like many of you, I started with the gateway drug of scrapbooking. Over time, I amassed hundreds of supplies, and as I purchased more things, waiting for just the right embellishment to inspire me, I felt less and less inspired until I found a new hobby called junk journaling. And I'm here to introduce that to you today. Junk journaling is a way of taking junk, things like a paper bag or leftover doilies, sheet music, and even cards, envelopes, magazines, and junk mail, and combining them into a beautiful, unique, handmade journal that you can use or give as a gift. I've simplified the process into a few simple steps, and I hope that you'll join me as each week we make something special from all of our craft supplies and have fun along the way. The first step in junk journaling is curating the collection of items that you have. So as I've mentioned before, I've collected all kinds of rubber stamps, I have paint, washi tape, and the thing to think about as you're curating your collection is finding items that fit together for the theme of your journal. For example, you may collect items based on color. I recently created a beautiful lavender journal for my friend that was seeking to calm and de-stress her life. So it was really easy to find purple items and pictures of lavender growing that contributed to this theme. I've also recently created a journal with sunflowers as a theme. And so finding images and materials that contribute to your theme is a great idea. Once you've collected and pruned your stash a little bit, you're ready to think about the cover. So to create a cover for a junk journal, you have a few different options. As you can see in this junk journal, I actually use the humble paper bag. So really it's your choice. If you're using a paper bag, the cover is a little bit softer and it's a little bit more fragile. Another item that I recommend if you're just starting with junk journaling is to use a mailing envelope. This journal was created recycling a mailer, and it has a cute little pocket on the inside. Another option is you can alter a book. So in this case, instead of taking out the pages and replacing them, I just painted over them and covered them with decorative paper. Once you've collected your papers and selected a cover, you're on to the fun part. The third step in journal making is creating ephemera. Ephemera is defined by Merriam-Webster as paper items such as posters, broadsides, and tickets that were originally meant to be discarded after use, but have since become collectibles. And junk journalers have their own unique jargon to describe some of these beautiful handmade items that we put in our junk journals. One fun thing to make is called a snippet roll. And this is a great way to use up some of your scraps and mismatched items. It's basically putting together strips of book pages or fabric and then attaching small items to it. Then this can be used in book as a border, as a belly band, or it can be cut to put an accent on a page. Another staple in the junk journaler's ephemera is tag making. And I've even cut actual tags off clothing and other items and repurposed them for my journals. And of course, if you have a tag, it needs to go in a pocket. This pocket has, let me see, how many different, it has a pocket here, a pocket here, a pocket here, and behind. So this is a quadruple pocket made out of book pages. That's really fun. Another thing you can make is a bookmark, right? If you're using a book. Another thing that we like to make is what's called a journal card. And for this card, I recycled a piece of junk mail. We all get those big postcards in the mail advertising sales. And on the front of it, I just collaged some pretty papers. And then I stamped on the back so that someone can write some notes or memories or a message in the journal. So there's all kinds of items. We also make faux tickets to enclose in a journal, library pockets, all kinds of envelopes that we hand make. So one thing that we'll be doing each week is making some ephemera to put inside the junk journal. Another really important step is composing. A lot of people do not like their handwriting, but I recently looked at my husband's grandmother's journal that she created back in the 20s. Talk about inspiration for journaling. In this book, she had all kinds of ephemera, authentic tickets and menus and pictures. She even put candy wrappers and dried flowers. And underneath each item, in her own handwriting, she wrote captions about her experience. What a treasured memory this is. And composing something in your journals is not something that you should be afraid of. And so I have some tips on how you can include your notes and compose some meaningful things, even if you're just dating and adding your signature. So don't be afraid to compose some lines in your journal, especially if you're making it as a gift or a keepsake. The fun part comes when you combine the journal that you've created and all the little treasures. And each week we'll be talking about that. This can be the timely part of the process, working hard to make sure that the colors and the theme and the ephemera is cohesive, but it's actually what makes it really, really beautiful and meaningful. So the next step is combine. Sometimes when we're overwhelmed by our craft supplies or we don't know where to start, we don't have any ideas, collaging is a great way that we can use up our mountains of supplies and get our creative juices flowing. Collage is my favorite. These collages can even be cut up and then used to make covers of journals, tags, journal cards, bookmarks, pockets, other items to use in your junk journals. So if you have a day when you feel uninspired, but you have a stack of unused craft supplies staring you in the face, maybe collage is the way to get your creativity flowing. One thing that's really fun is joining other people to participate in your crafting. So I encourage you to watch every week, join the community. There's a lot of people that have groups online and on Facebook, and you can watch tutorials. It's a lot more fun if instead of crafting alone. I like to think of it as an old-fashioned quilting bee. Each Friday, I get together with my friend and we spend some time crafting, chatting, and of course snacking. And I believe that crafting, like a lot of things, is a lot more fun when you do it in community. So today I've shared with you my steps for junk journaling. creating a beautiful, unique journal that you can use as a gift or for yourself. Step number 1 is collating all of your supplies. We've all collected all kinds of things, and with junk journaling, there are no rules. You can even recycle a calendar and come up with something unique and beautiful. Then you need to construct a cover, and during our tutorials, I'll show you how to make various types of covers. You combine colors and themes and pictures to make a journal. Combining is the next step. And another important step is composing, making sure that you write in your journal and you document the moments of life that are important to you. When you're feeling uninspired, there's all kinds of creative activities we can do, including collaging. It's a whole lot of fun as well. Finally, it's really important to join a community of like-minded people. Get together and watch our show each month and join the crafting community. Welcome to Expressions in Journaling. My name is Heather. In our first episode, I explained the simple process that I use to help you use up all of the craft supplies that you have collected. And today, we're going to work on creating some ephemera, and we're going to create a simple collage tag to get you started. So to start off, let me tell you some of the supplies that you'll be using today. I'm using some junk mail. That is the easiest way to recycle products or items you have on hand. Really, you can use anything that you want. This is a good project if you have some ugly scrapbook paper that you want to cover up. You can use that. You can use a book page. You can use regular copy paper. Any type of paper is fine. I would suggest something around 8.5 by 11, a regular sheet of copy paper. I'm going to use this piece of junk mail, and it measures about 11 by 6. So I think I can make 4 tags out of this. I'm keeping in mind the finished size of my journal, and it's most convenient to create journals that are about 9 by 6 inches, because the pages that you can put inside, it's really easy to just fold a sheet of standard paper and sew it right into the signature. So this is the size of book I'm planning for the tags we're making today. But of course, it's your project, so you can make tiny, cute little tags, you can make bigger tags, and really this entire sheet could be one jumbo tag. So in our previous episode, when I explained the various steps, I told you a new word as part of the junk journal lingo that we use, and that word is ephemera. And what ephemera is, it is those items in life that often are thrown away. Ticket stubs, menus, wrappers, any type of thing that normally would be thrown away, but someone sentimental like me would collect and save as a keepsake. And so, of course, authentic vintage ephemera is all the rage with junk journalers, but we also like to create our own. And so today we're going to start with a simple collage tag, thinking in mind a tag that you would use to label items, or a shipping tag. And they're really easy and they're fun to make. It also helps you to get rid of the various scraps that you may have collected. So we're going to use some junk mail as our substrate. You need a glue stick, any type will do. You need some scissors to cut things, a ruler, a pencil, and I did bring a hole punch if you want to put a hole at the top of your tag, but that's certainly not mandatory. So the fun thing about collage is that you can't really make a mistake. The finished product is going to come out really great. And if you do feel that your tag is too busy, You can always put a little wash of white paint over it. Some artists use gesso to kind of blend the colors and keep it from being too garish. So that being said, that collage can't go wrong. I do have some suggestions as we're getting started. So you should have your substrate, whatever you're going to put your tag on. And again, it can be a piece of copy paper. It can be an ugly piece of scrapbook paper. I'm using junk mail. And you want to start with some neutrals. So what I say by a neutral is book page. That's what I'm using. I've gutted a lot of books and making my journal, so I have lots of book pages lying around. A piece of sheet music. And I'm always talking about using up a paper bag. If you don't have these items on hand, it's really fun to make your own neutral pages. So a suggestion I would have is to take a piece of copy paper, and you can take the bottom of a pencil and dip that in paint or ink, and you can just make some marks on paper. If any of you have tried the trend of hand lettering, that's another fun way to incorporate another craft into your project. You can, it doesn't even have to be calligraphy. You can take a pen or a pencil, a marker, and just write out the alphabet. Some people may write out song lyrics, and in that way you're using up paper and you're creating your own neutral pieces to put in your work. So I'm going to orient my tag vertically because I'm going to, in the end, cut it in half here and then vertically to make 4 tags. So the one thing I do suggest is I sometimes draw an arrow on my tag so that I remember to orient everything facing up. And so we're going to start with our neutrals, and I'm just going to use my ruler and rip some strips along the lines of the music. Okay, I'm not checking to see if it's even. I'll put these aside. And I'm going to do the same with the book page. And so with your neutral pieces, I suggest that you use an odd number. I'm going to start with 5. And these pieces can be bigger than the others because you can always cover them up. You're going to be overlapping pieces. And this way, they're going to be spread around. So you always do want to take a quick look at the page you're using, especially if you're using English book pages, just to make sure that there isn't anything, you know, that you wouldn't want to see in your finished product. And again, some people use dictionary pages as their neutrals. You could use magazine pages. Anything will do. And again, I'm just cutting it into various strips here. I'm going to make this one a little bit thinner. So one idea you always want to keep in mind is you want to have variety in size, shape, and color. So here I've made a thin horizontal strip, and here this is more of a block. And I'm going to make a couple other pieces that are like that. So here we go. I have 5 pieces, and then I'm going to put these scraps aside because we're going to use those up. I never throw any paper away, which is terrible, so I had to make a rule for myself, and you know, if it's smaller than this, I can throw it away. But this we can all use for another collage. And so I'm just very generous with the glue stick. I'm gonna put these, I usually put my starter pieces on the corners and the edge, and again, keeping in mind the orientation of my tag, that this is going to be up. And so I'll put one over here. So I'm spreading them out. Some of them are touching the edges. And collage is one of my favorite aspects of crafting. And a lot of people have commented, and they've even done studies on the meditative healing properties of crafting, specifically collage, knitting, any repetitive action that you're doing. And especially with the pandemic, we saw a great rise in crafting because of those healing benefits. So here I am putting my 5th piece on. I'm going to stick it here, kind of in the middle, okay? And then I'm gonna do the same thing with my music. Again, keeping in mind, making sure that the music isn't upside down. And again, if that's the totally random way that you want to do it, go for it. I've seen that as well. I'm just a person that reads music, so it would be distracting to me if it was upside down. And I'm going to place these so that we have our page covered. I really like the look of eclectic junk journals, so I don't always have a specific theme in mind. And so the craft I'm doing today, I'm ready for spring, and so that will kind of be my overall theme. My name is Heather, so I tend to choose, which is the name of an English plant, right? So I tend to choose a lot of botanicals in my work. A lot of my pages have butterflies or flowers, but you can choose whatever theme you want. This is your project. And I'm going to stick one more on, and then we're going to, let's use the bass clef here. Let's change it up. I've got the treble clef over here. So again, I'm feeling like I don't know where to put it, but I'm gonna stick it down because if I don't like it, I can always cover over it. That's the thing with collage. So here we have our neutrals on our tag. And so now I'm going to start to use up some pages. So these scrapbook pages were given to me from a friend, and they obviously coordinate in their colors. I'm going to choose this one because it has several colors in it that we can draw from. It has the nice blue background, we have pink, some darker pink, almost a red, and then the green leaves. And so you don't need a lot of this. That's why collage is a good way to use up scraps. So I'm gonna rip a strip here and rip it down a little bit more. And again, for some people, they feel like they have to measure. They don't like, ripping it, but I think it's totally okay. You can work on yours however you would like. And again, I'm trying to have some variety in size and shape. So I have some that are thinner and longer, and I have some that are square. And I'm going to stick these down, and we will see overlap. So at this point, I'm going to purposefully put down some of these colored pieces on top of my book page and music page. And then I'll feel like I've covered the page. Okay, this is coming together pretty good, and this piece is uneven, but that's okay. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to glue this down because I can cover over that jagged edge. I'm not worried about that. And let's see. Okay, so we're thinking of variety in size, shape, and color. So now I want to add some contrast here, right? We've got a lot of the neutrals. We have this blue. So I think I'm going to bring in this reddish color. And I want to make sure we're thinking about variety in size, and color here. So these pieces are going to be a little bit smaller just because I feel like this red could be overpowering. And at this point, I feel like this project is very matchy-matchy just because these sheets, happen to be on top and they're coordinating. So when I bring in my scraps a little bit later, I'm gonna add a little bit more variety. So here we go. I'm going to make some of these in smaller strips. And let's see, I have 4. So like I said, I have this thing about kind of having a odd number. And thinking of keeping in mind the idea of contrast, I'm going to try to put these next to the blue pieces. So again, there's no rules. I'm sure it's gonna look fabulous. But again, this is something to keep in mind when you're wondering how you can make your project work here. So now I'm trying to fit it over, so that will work. So it's okay, I'm covering up, a lot of the book page here, but that's okay. We want you to have fun. We don't want you to worry and labor over this, because again, we're going to cut this up. It's going to look fantastic. And the idea of this is to be soothing, relaxing, and fun after a long day at work. And I certainly have had a long week at work. So now I'm going to orient this one up and down. One thing you can do too is I'm looking at this and I'm just going to change the orientation. And so then I can see spots that might need some red. So as I'm looking at it, I see over here, I'd like to add some. So that's always a good thing to do, to kind of get a different perspective. It's totally okay to do that. I've seen some painters that take huge pieces of artwork and just kind of spin them as they're working on the background layers. It's really interesting. And I want to put this over here, but I think I need a smaller piece, so I'm going to make this smaller. And since I have another lonely piece here, I'm going to stick it on somewhere. Oh, I don't know, over here, I guess. So, all right, so again, I'm happy with this. I feel like it is a little bit matchy-matchy. So fortunately, I have all kinds of scraps over here, so I'm just going to pull a few things that might look good. I'm going to pull this, kind of like this. Maybe this. All right, we'll start with these. I really like this black and white piece that has contrast, so I might stick that on there somewhere. But there was, let's start with this blue. So I've always kind of been a crafty, creative person. I remember when I was real young, my favorite birthday gift, my mom would often buy me a box of craft supplies, and that would be my favorite thing. I remember one year I really wanted some Dr. Scholl's, and I did not get them, and so I created my own. I took cardboard and I traced my foot and I stacked a whole bunch of them on top of each other, and then I made a strap. And then I think when I took my first step, the pressure from my foot against the strap broke them. But it kept me very busy. I really wanted those Dr. Scholl's. And then as I grew older and was in school, my schedule didn't allow for me to take any art classes. I did attend PCC in 8th grade, and I took a writing class in painting and drawing, and I really, really enjoyed it. But then as I was in high school, I was actually in the band instead of doing the visual arts. So I'm really happy to come back to the world of crafting in my senior years. Okay, so I cut out a piece of paper, and again, I want to remember my vertical orientation here, because this little piece has some words on it and some letters. And so at this point, I'm doing pretty well at covering the paper. So I just want to go in and cover up some of the spots that were missed. I probably can make these pieces a little bit smaller. All right, I'm going to reorient this because I'm not sure what I want to put down here. So thinking variety in size, shape of color, this is looking a little bit the same. I was looking for green. Oh, here's some green. I'm going to throw this green on here. So these are little scraps I found. So let's stick this on here. So I'm kind of going over the seams here. Oh, I see another little tiny spot. All right, this is covered. Let's cover that little piece right there, that white space. And then I have got some words right there I have to cover up. Okay, what can I put right here? Yellow. Here, it's in my hand. I'm gonna cut it and stick it on there and call it done. Okay, so I think I'm finished. I did it. We have our paper covered up, and so now we're ready for the next step, which is to cut it into tags. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this edge here. You can see it's sticking over the side. So I just have a paper trimmer. Again, you don't need to have a paper trimmer. This one has got to be 20 years old, and recently I went to Michael's and bought this blade. It was a 2-pack, and this works good as new. So you don't have to make a big investment. You don't even need the trimmer. It's just easier. I've seen people use a ruler and just, a razor blade, or you can use scissors. So let's measure this again, and this is about 11 inches. So I'm just going to make a mark at 5.5, which would be halfway through, and we're going to trim it. So again, if you had scissors, you would just draw the line with the ruler and cut on the straight line. You don't need a trimmer. And then I'm going to cut each of these in half, so it'll be about 3 inches. So the tags end up being about 3 by 5, and I was just checking it to make sure the orientation was what I was hoping for. It looks like on the advertising, they already kind of cut it down the middle there. So I'll just follow that line. I don't even have to measure. Okay, and so here we go. We have 4 tags already ready to go. And what I often do is on the back, I put plain paper. So in here somewhere, I had some plain book page. So that's something that you could do. I often coffee dye paper, to give it that vintage look. So I'm just going to go ahead here and back one of these. Let's see, which one am I going to choose? I'm going to choose this one. So this is the one we're going to work on. And I'm just going to glue this down so the back is nice and neat. And this is a time when I normally, again, have a card and kind of scrape it down just to make sure it adheres really well to the back. And then I'm just going to trim this off. Okay. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to give it that tag shape, right? A tag usually has these corners cut off. And so again, that's really the differentiation between a tag or a bookmark or a journal card is just that the corners are cut off. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And so I'm cutting this corner. And then to make sure that they're even, what you do is you take the corner that you cut off and place it over here so that it's an exact match. And so now you have two pieces the same size, and so I have my tag. So again, if you're looking at your tag and you're not totally happy with it, now is the time that you can add more embellishment. I think you should be happy with the tag. I'm very happy with mine. And so now I'm going to punch a hole up here. And again, I'm just eyeballing it. I don't do any measuring. And I'm not sure where mine are now, but it's fun to also get the little reinforcers. As you can see on this tag, I put the reinforcer and I inked it a little bit. That's one thing that I do like to do. I like to ink up the edges. And so I did bring some distress ink, and I just like to give it kind of that antique look or vintage look, and I just brush it along the sides. Some people don't use any of this at all. Some people use it quite a bit. I tend to be a person that uses it. I think it just adds to that style. So I guess this is kind of like the shabby chic style. Okay. And then we also have these brushes that you can kind of blend a little bit. So another thing, if you're not happy with the tag, some people at this point put a wash of gesso over the tag to make it blend together a little bit. What I plan to do right now is, so that it's similar to these other tags, is we're going to add a ribbon at the top, we're going to add a focal point image, and then maybe some embellishment at the bottom. One thing I like to do is I like to add words or phrases, and this is something that you could stamp on a tag. You could cut out a word from a magazine. A lot of different crafters offer free sheets with inspiring words on them. You can also pay for various digital collections. Another thing I do is you can cut out numbers from magazines. I tend to cut out lots of letters and numbers and add them to my work. So that's what we're going to do for the finishing step, is we're going to add a focal point, a ribbon, and maybe a word or number to finish it up. But again, I think it's beautiful just like this, right? We don't really have to do anything else. So let's see, I am looking for a focal point image, so I'm going to dip into my secret stash here. It's not pretty, but again, I've collected all kinds of images. You can get these from magazines, you can buy images. I like to buy children's books, so I actually brought a book. Again, this was a free book at the library, and it has lots of cute pictures, like see this little lizard, the chipmunk, the beautiful leaves, butterflies are a favorite, this cute little squirrel. So there's lots of places that you can find images to cut them out. You can draw them yourself. This one, I just took a book page and cut out a heart and add some ink, right? So there's lots of places to find an image. So I'm gonna go ahead and look, so I'm looking for something, ooh, this kind of matches, this is a big contender, right? This is blue, it's a little bit darker, so it has some contrast. It goes with my spring idea. So I have this little tag here. And again, the purpose of this is we're trying to use up all the art supplies that we have purchased and found. So I kind of like that. That has the same idea going on here with an insect. What else? Ooh, and I like this. So one way to get scraps is I actually, during quarantine, I started junk journaling quite a bit, right? Everyone was kind of isolated, staying at home. I wasn't leaving the house to do work. I was doing lots of Zoom calls. And I have a friend whose hobby is sewing, and I asked her to drop off some scraps. And she did. So even this tiny little piece of rickrack, I can use this as embellishment on probably on two tags, right? And so if you don't have the supplies yourself, it's really easy to find them. If you have clothes that you are giving away or recycling or that don't fit, you can find all kinds of buttons and zippers and bows and all kinds of things. So there's lots of ways, inexpensive ways to find this. I also find lots of, Savers is a really good place to find, craft materials for someone that has, maybe giving up on a sewing project or a knitting project or something. So I think I'm actually happy with this. I have 2 images here. And I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to add some ink just to make this stand out from the background a little bit. And again, this ink is not required. This is something you can get at Michael's. You can order it online. And if you don't have ink, you can use paint. I have over, I think I have 132 bottles of craft paint, right, from another crafting project. So you could just paint along the edges. You could take a paintbrush. That's a really good way to use up supplies. Some people take a pen and kind of make a faux stitching design around the edge. Some people actually use a sewing machine and sew around the edges just to give it some extra flair. And you can also leave it totally plain, and that's totally beautiful too. So this is what I've come up with here. I've got 2 little insects on here. I love butterflies because they are beautiful and they remind me of change. I'm always trying to be my best self, and that's what butterflies represent for me. So again, I'm just using the glue stick to glue these down. When we're doing other things, there's other glues I'd recommend. So now I'm just going to measure and see, well, not really measure, eyeball it, stick it down here and cut. And I'm actually going to cut the other end because it was a little bit frayed. Okay. And this is craft glue. I like it because it has a really fine, you can adjust the tip, and it is permanent glue, and it dries very quickly. The downside to it is that you often have to unclog the tip. So it looks like I need to do that. I'm not going to take the time to do that now. So this is tacky glue. And so in a future episode, I'll give you a couple tips about types of glue that you should use. Mainly what you want to use with paper products is you want to use something that is acid-free, because the acid will eat away at the paper, and you don't want that to happen because you worked hard to create this beautiful project. Okay, so let's clear this out. So the last step, I told you I'm a messy crafter. This is tough. The last step is we're going to add a tag to the, a tag to this. And again, I have collected lots and lots of ribbon. Savers, again, is a good place to get it. Find it on clothing. You can, if you are a person that sews, you can just rip strips of fabric. I'm liking this. I guess I'm going with this pink here. I also have this light pink I could use. I have blue. I don't know. So I'm going for this gold. And I have no idea what this is. I think this was from my daughter years ago. I think she did some type of craft project with this funky pattern. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna weave this through. I'm gonna cut it and I sometimes just staple these. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So I hope that you have had fun on this journey. I hope you've been able to enjoy the relaxing benefits of crafting and collage. Collage is my favorite thing. And really, you can't mess it up. So I just stapled it on the top. You can tie it, you can glue it. Oops, I didn't do a very good job of stapling, so I'll have to do it again. But you can glue it. Let's try this one more time. Okay, so we have our finished product. I hope you had a great time and were able to use up some of your scraps. And until our next episode, happy journaling. Thanks for joining us.